Thank you. My name is Howard, and I am an alcoholic. I have a. I was asked to speak slowly because it is being translated into Spanish, and my directions, my guidance is please speak slowly and pause after every sentence with no direction on how long the pause should be. Anyway, I'm honored to be here, and I'm grateful for you. And I thank the other guys and girls that were asked to speak. Uh, our general service delegate uh, is gave a great talk, and I felt welcome to that. I have a great admiration for people that serve in that capacity. And I kind of drag my feet sometimes, all the time. Uh, but I was at the Pacific Group one night, and Clancy gave a little talk about should we have a fourth edition to the Big Book. Well, I knew we shouldn't. There was an effort to take one of the best, I thought there was an effort to take one of the best stories out of the Big Book. And I was against that. And so I decided to vote no. I later heard that when the vote was given, I was the only one that voted no, but I closed my eyes and I voted. Now, as it turned out, the General Service Conference Committee, whatever in General Service did it, they not only didn't take the story that I didn't want taken out, not only did they not take it out, they removed from the title the offensive part to many of the people who wanted to take it out. So they corrected that. The author had never used that particular title. He had used the bronze slippers or something when he wrote it for the grapevine. But anyway, my point is these guys solved that, and not only solved it, they took the stories that they took out and put them with all the stories they have taken out and made them available to us as a second volume of the text. They did everything that they could to solve everybody's desire. That's the way AA should work, and it really works good that way with general service. I see it time and time again for all my life in AA general service. Invariably, now everybody don't agree with me, but in general service, invariably gets it right, gets it the best they can. So I want to thank everybody who does work for general service for that effort. And so I'm going to try to tell my story. I was born. I generally say 1,000 years ago in Los Angeles, but really it was only 84 years ago. And I was 39 when I got sober. And my sobriety date is August the 4th, 1939. August 4th, 1972. And I was born in 1932. So it's like I got a lot to squeeze into there. And I got to pause. So I'm going to leave some stuff out, but not much. I could have left out the Los Angeles because there's nothing in my story that relates to my being born in Los Angeles, except I'm proud of having been born in Los Angeles rather than Kansas. My wife was born in Kansas, and And I will tell you this about my wife. Uh, Many of you know we met in the seventh grade. I fell in love with her. And we became boyfriend and girlfriend for just a short period of time. And during when I first saw her, I think I fell in love with her. And I always felt like I did. I always felt the love for her, but I never told her. And she, uh, love, according to Joseph Campbell, okay, there's a spirit of the universe underlying the totality of things. The universe started with an infinitely compressed, infinitely hot spirit energy, which began to expand, cool, and evolve into the universe we live in today, all in perfect order and harmony. And when you fall in love, the spirit of the universe is in me as me. That same spirit of the universe is in Pat, has Pat. And our spirits resonated and knew that they were one, that we were in love. But for that to get to your consciousness, it has to come up through your ego. And when that got to my ego, I thought, I want to see her naked. That's the kind of ego I have. Hopefully, it's changing, but anyway, we were boyfriend and girlfriend, but she was always my friend, and she always loved this town. She loved her life, and she loved everything, and I didn't like anything. And the sooner I could get out, and I used to, when Pat was such a happy person, I'd think, what a phony, you know. But I know now it isn't phony. That she's just a happy person and loves people. Very, very thoughtful. I'd say, what you getting that for? Well, Kimberly would like this, or somebody would like this thing that she's buying. She's selling, and she gets a lot of stuff for herself too. But that's always second, you know. Uh, Now, when you come together in marriage, the reason you come together is to nurture the oneness of the spirit. And I don't know that, but she taught me that. And that's what she does. She was the head cheerleader through every grade through high school. And a very popular girl, and the athletes all loved her, and she I thought liked sports. Well, it turns out that's not true. She don't like sports. She had no interest in it, and she can't jump up and down, and she can't. So we got a new baseball park here in Phoenix, and it was called Bob. And Pat wanted to go see Bob, and so I took her. And we went all the way through that place up into the private places, and oh man, she was impressed. And then they played the music and opened the doors up at the top to let the night in, and she said, "Oh, that is now. Let's go home." I said, "Go home? We haven't even seen the baseball. No, there's a baseball." Oh, I don't care about the baseball. And we went home at the third inning. I had my brother and his brother-in-law came out and stayed with us every March for spring training. It was a big time for the three of us, and Pat was always very nice, and she's known all of us all about the same time. And and in 2001, I think the D-backs were in the World Series. And Pat said to me, "Isn't the World Series a big deal?" I said, Pat, that's the biggest deal there is in baseball. Well, she said, do you think Bill and Carl would like to come out? And I said, but I know they would love to. And she said, see if we can get tickets. And we could, and we bought tickets and we called and flew them out. And we had the best World Series of all, you know. And we knew a lot of the players because we had a comedy club then in Tempe, and people and the players would come. So I got my picture taken with all of them, and it was such a wonderful experience that she did just because she nurtures the oneness of the spirit. She doesn't care about baseball except if other people do, and she can do something to make that work. And that's the way we've lived, except on my part, I have been a taker. You know, I have been the taker and she's been the giver. And gradually, after I came to AA, but I'll let that be my drunken luck. I will tell you this. I drank to feel good. I never felt good if I didn't drink. That was I just never did. And not that good. I've had that state of low grade alert that, well, everything's all right, but something bad is about to happen. That's the best feeling I ever had, but I like to have that feeling uh, better than the one I had when I was immobilized with anxiety or just afraid of everything all the time. Just a state of low grade alert is a good feeling compared to immobilizing anxiety, and drinking solves the anxiety. Drinking, my dad was an alcoholic. I was the sixth kid in 8 years. Dad knew that he didn't like the way he behaved, and he blamed it on his folks not disciplining him. And he was not going to make that mistake with me. And he would whip the tar out of me. About 4 times I got whipped worse than you should whip a child. I never got where I liked it. It don't make you an alcoholic, but I didn't like it. Now I understand there are some people that like being whipped, and that's all right with me. But I don't like that. And it was only recently. Now, Pat and I've been married 63 years this month. And, and it was only recently that I realized I never asked her if she would like for me to whip her. I just assumed I wouldn't like it and assumed she wouldn't either. But so anyway, I'm just never thinking about the other person. Always thinking about myself. So I drank to feel good. I drank to be somebody. I was a jerk. This may be my liver. I had it turned off, but it what came back on. So anyway, it's the big transition. I think was when I got a job as an entry level engineer, and I had to write technical reports, and I had writer's block. I mean, it was immobilizing. And what I discovered was if I drank about a half a pint of whiskey, I had a technical vocabulary I didn't even know I had. Which a half a pint of whiskey don't make me drunk. that made me brilliant. And this solved the writing problem. And I was really good at the rest of the job that they hired me for. And my boss's boss came out and said, "Did you write this?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "This is a good report." I said, "Well, thank you." He said, "We knew you could do it if you'd just give us the effort." I thought, effort? I gave you effort. It wasn't effort. It was whiskey. But I thought, don't tell him that. Let him think effort. They'll give you money for effort. They won't give you anything. Maybe the finger or something, but for whiskey. So it was whiskey, and it was whiskey that let me be an achiever. I could achieve, and I went from a process analyst to a engineer to a senior engineer, and then changed companies from San Diego to Hughes in Culver City, and as a senior engineer, and then an engineering manager. A steady progression of promotions that I got because I drank whiskey. It would have never happened if I didn't have whiskey. It just got so that you got to drink so much whiskey that at 7 o'clock when you go in, your speech is slurred. Well, they don't like that. But God gave me an answer. I drank in a bar called the Tattletale, and there was a guy in the Tattletale that sold little white pills with crosses on them. And he stack them up and wrap them with tinfoil. You look at these and you think, hey, these are lifesavers. Those are lifesavers. I'm telling you. Booze and Benzedrine combined solve every problem that the alcoholic has, including slurred speech. I mean, you say the same things over and over really fast. It helps you in every way except with your body functions. You're bad there, but everything else. So I got demoted, and I was hopelessly in debt. Pat didn't know that I was in debt. I had an opportunity to sell some equipment that Hughes had, and, until I found it, and then they lost it. But I'm now a candidate. It was owned by the federal government. I'm a candidate for federal penitentiary, and I'm telling the bartender or the owner of the bar in the Tattletale, anybody who wants test equipment, I can get it for them. The next morning was the 26th of July, 1972, and I woke up on page 8 in the big book. I just make up page numbers, make this stuff up, and nobody checks. But it adds credibility to the talk. So I woke up on page 8 and thought there are no words to express the loneliness and despair I found in this bitter morass of self pity. Quicksand stretches out in every direction. And just like all the stuff in the long run in the big book, that collection of words tells the story. There's no words to express that. And quicksand, that's sinking into the mire, is in every area of my life, at home, in the neighborhood, in the community, at work, every place. I am disintegrating with nothing in my life to stop it. And on that day, I called the guy I used to drink with in the Tattletale, who 8 years ago went to Alcoholics Anonymous. His name, back when I was drinking with him, was Kenny Sixbury. He changed his name to Kenny S. once he got to AA. I just found out last weekend that Kenny had passed away, and he was he was a great AA all the way through, and so uh, I called Kenny, and he talked me into going to a meeting that night. It was a beginners meeting. This Culver City Studio Group met Monday as a beginners meeting, and Friday at the speaker meeting. And the first thing they have you do that at the beginners meeting is there anybody here in their first meeting? They never said first or second. Anybody here in the first meeting of AA? And if somebody's hand went up, the topic, now they may have had topics planned for weeks, but anytime a newcomer's hand goes up, the topic is, what is alcoholism? What is an alcoholic? And how did they stop drinking? Chuck, who was our guy, was 29 years. Chuck, would you share with us on that? And Chuck would stand up. He was in that film editor at MGM, and he'd talk about going across Washington to the backstage bar when I had drank myself from time to time. And he said, I just stopped for a drink, 2, 3 at the most, and then it was closing time. And he had to go home. And he said, I made good money, but I just buy drinks for the house. And I thought, boy, honey, that sounds just like me. But then he got to AA, and he learned what an alcoholic is. Alcoholics are men and women who have lost the ability to control their drinking. The loss of control is characterized by an insane, obsessive belief each time they started to drink that somehow, some way, this time they were going to control and enjoy their drinking. Coupled with that, though, is a phenomenon of craving that develops whenever they start to drink. A craving, Chuck said, that is so strong that the willpower is not strong enough to keep you from taking the drink. Man, I thought all the time he's explaining it. That sounds like me. That sounds like me. That sounds like. But I didn't know that until I heard it that alcoholics are simply weak-willed drinkers. Now I had willpower. On January the 1st, 1965, I put out a cigarette when the clock struck midnight, and I said, that's my last cigarette. And I'm telling you, 15 seconds later, you crave a cigarette. I mean, you crave a cigarette. And as time goes on, you crave more. But I haven't smoked a cigarette to this day since the 1st of January, 1965, because of my willpower. And by gosh, now that I know that it's willpower that it takes to control your drinking, I've got it. A week later, I set about to prove that in San Diego. And I, Joe and Charlie used to say in their seminars, I don't know what happens to Willie Power once an alcoholic starts to drink, but Willie Power ain't to be found, you know. That's the truth. That was the truth for me. Any will I had was focused on, I want another drink. There is no will that I not drink. It is only that I will another drink. Even, when I couldn't get home, I was drunk, and on August the 4th, I stood on the streets of San Diego and I surrendered that I'm an alcoholic, that I have to stop drinking, but I can't. I'm going to AA, not to hide out, but to get help stopping drinking. My dad had been an alcoholic. He died an alcoholic, of course, but he died sober at an AA meeting. And I was talking in New Mexico not very long ago, and a guy from Pratt, Kansas was there who was a delegate in his day, and he talked about this AA group in Argonia, Kansas. It was the mother group of all the groups around there. And that was my dad had co-founded that meeting. And if, at the Kansas State Convention, I went through the archives, and they had short, brief descriptions of their each group had, and they had them filed by county. And my dad was all over Sumner County and helping meetings that started in helping them solve problems. Uh, he got sober on the 4th of July, 1946. And I remember sitting at the back in 46, sitting at the uh, lunch table with mom and dad. Dad was a Mason also, and it was very esoteric. Everything was secret. Well, that's the way it was with him and he was a barber, and he had the ridiculous idea that people wouldn't want an alcoholic to shave them with a straight razor. Uh, so, so anyway, he kept everything secret. But I knew that he was in AA, and I knew that alcoholics were people that couldn't drink in the morning. And and I knew that right up until I started drinking in the morning. And now I didn't know why alcoholics did, but I did because it got rid of hangovers. And somebody told me the other day, yesterday, I remember when you said this, and what I said was the truth. I never crossed the line from alcoholic, from non-alcoholic to alcoholic. I never crossed the line. I moved the line up. Oh, well, this will be fine, but the line always had to move. And so I saw finally that I'm over the line. And then Pat stayed with me. My boss let me have my job, keep my job. I stopped losing things. And things got solid. I didn't feel the solidness, but my life had turned and changed. And I never thought that I wanted another drink. Whenever I had a lot of stress. Um, I got, one very long till my boss promoted me back into management. Well, now that's what I wanted, but that's stressful. Pat said, I'm going to stay with you. I'm never going to threaten to leave you. you. I don't think you're going to drink again. I want to stay with you, but we're only to change. Oh, that's stressful. Changing is stressful. And so I had a lot of stress, and as I went through the days, and I told Kenny, I said, I'm not going to work the steps. That's number one, and God isn't in my life. Can I still have a program? He said, yes, you can. Of course you can. I said, what's my program? He said, we're going to go to a meeting every night for the first 30 days. I said, is that it? Is that all? He said, that's it. That's all. A meeting at night. And I'll go with you. Well, on the way to the meeting, he's adding stuff. Like, I want you to listen to what these guys are saying. And if it sounds good, add that to your life. Well, as I told earlier with the long timers, that I heard wonderful things, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. This wasn't working for me. I know don't brood. That don't make sense to brood. I know not to worry. I heard the guy say, worry is the only game in town that if you guessed right, you'll feel worse. Well, I'll just stop worrying. And you get through it, but it couldn't happen. And as we all know in the big book, it says all of us have, many of us have, and it says it in the we agnostics, in the first couple of paragraphs, and it says that it ain't but chance that the agnostic would say this. Many of us had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but when it comes time to practice it, the necessary power isn't there. We lack the power to practice those. And now I wasn't going to work the steps, but I was stressed out, and this wasn't working for me. And I was pushing the lawnmower one day, and it hit a tree root. My chest hit the bowl on the lawnmower. Hurt. Dad, you want to have bad hurt? Take a ball peen hammer and put the round part, whack yourself. My immediate response was, damn off. Now that doesn't make sense to Al-Anons, but that makes sense to alcoholics. It's always them. Damn her anyway. And damn AA too. If AA worked with my chest hurt, I don't think so. Nope, AA ain't going to help me. I'm not going to that damn meeting and grinning like a baboon and say it's wonderful. It's not wonderful, and it's never going to be wonderful. And I'm not going. But I never didn't go. Somebody would come and get me, and I'd go. I got this here. Get in the car, you know. Uh, you, we go, we go. And that night, Don Gates was the speaker. I had the best speakers. The icons of speakers were in Southern California during that particular time. And one of them was talking someplace every night that you could go to. Don Gates was one of those speakers, and he became a justice in the Superior Court, right below the California Supreme Court. Uh, uh, and he said that night, if you're new in AA and you are not working the steps, AA won't be fun. And you'll decide it doesn't work for you. Then you'll decide you're not going to meetings anymore. And if you do that, if you stop going to the meetings, eventually you'll go back to the bar. And when you do that, if the bartender says, "What's the matter? I thought you was going to AA. Don't AA work?" He said, "If you're not working the steps, be honest with him and tell him you don't know if it would work or not because you weren't trying." My head pops off at everything, but I did not pop out with that. And when I got in the car to go home, I told Clemens, Don's right. I can't say the steps won't work if I won't work the steps. I'm going to work the steps. Okay? Then the next night, I go to that was at the Saturday night meeting. At the Sunday night meeting, there was an actor there. Everybody wore long hair except me, all the men, and I didn't. And Archie had his hair cut short, like in the 1930s or 40s. And he's an actor. And I said, "Did you get a part?" He said, "I got a part, a speaking role. I'm all the way through the movie called Sting with Robert Redford and Paul Newman." And he said, "We just signed a contract for residuals. This is going to pay like diamond, like forever, rest of my life." And he said, "Are you going to the Palisades tomorrow night?" And I said, "Well, I always do." And he said, "I'm the speaker." And I went, and Archie said, "I was so busy this week wanting what I was getting that I didn't have time to worry about getting what I wanted. And he added, in AA, we try to learn to live in the now, right now. And whatever's happening right now, including my talk, love that, because that's what's going to happen anyway. And the biggest problem you can have is not wanting what's going to happen anyway. When you could love it. I said to my head said, I'd like to stick him in the eye with a sharp stick and feed him love that. Let's put this theory to test. I went outside and it's raining. It's raining as hard as it can rain in the Palisades. And when I was a kid in Kansas, we prayed for it not to rain. And it rained when we prayed for it not to, and wiped out the wheat crop. And I felt guilty because I was the one that wasn't doing what God wants. Therefore, we didn't get the prayer answered. Now, if you're 4 or 5 years old and you've assumed the entire responsibility for the Kansas wheat crop, what you have is an ego problem. The old ego basing your sense of well-being on your being able to make things happen that you want to happen to make you feel good. That is a delusion. That is an insane delusion. And that, anyway, I still have that delusion that night. And I went outside, it was raining. And by the time I got to the car, I hated the rain because I wiped out the quick crop with it. And I sat there and a voice said, now I've had this voice talk to me a lot. It pops off. But this time the voice said, Mark Twain says this. Will Rogers says this. Everybody complains about the weather, but nobody does anything about it. Why don't you do what Archie suggests and love the rain? Okay, it just so happened we had wooden shingles and I love the rain. It was soothing, and when I woke up, it wasn't raining, and my first reaction was, "Oh, doom is now," and then it was, "You got to adjust whatever's going on now. Love it, not rainy. No big deal, except that's a big deal. I love the rain, and I was a long time putting this together. Saturday night, I surrendered and said, I'm not going to have my way about this. I'm going to have yours. I'm going to work the steps. And I was able to love the rain. And I know that where the power comes from even deciding, any surrender, everything, all surrender is followed by a spiritual experience if you're open to it. And this program is a ton of surrenders, but a ton of growth. 50 tons of growth. It's and this is happening, and it isn't an intellectual exercise. I don't, Jack B, who used to be the MC on Queen for a Day, he once said, the idea of not taking the first drink is too complex for the keen intellect of the alcoholic. All of this stuff, this surrender, that's too complex for my keen intellect. But it's not an intellectual thing. It is a spiritual response to a situation that basically says, of myself in this particular instance, I am hopeless and helpless. It's the spirit within then that does the work. But it only does it when we let it in with humility. That's not an intellectual thing. You may have an intellectual idea about it, I intellectually knew about that I was in when I surrendered. But that what changes faith, what changes things, is the humility that goes with it. Uh, and at least that's my experience, and the steps are set up that way. I make a list now. I thought last night was the best explanation I have ever heard of the fourth column. I got sober before Joe and Charlie started their thing, and I was taught Jack B was, and then Fred Ellis was his sponsee, and George Cooper, and then me. And Jack had read the book the way it's written. Anyway, I learned a different way of doing the inventory. And I went back to, I prepared a timeline, and I go back through my life, and I list everybody, every institution, and every principle that I resent. And I put down, I resent this, the cause, and its effect. And I finished that. And then I look at it and I say, huh, damn, I didn't know I was that angry. I don't want to be that angry. And then we do the prayer. And when I read the prayer on page 66 and 67, I didn't pray it. I read it with a deeper meaning for each word and phrase. And I forgave my dad. And I forgave each one of those resentments. I didn't do it. You see, I had surrendered that I don't want to be this way and I can't change. Help. Then I make a 3-column inventory on selfishness. Now, resentment is where I want to do something and somehow somebody in a position of authority, or at least in a position to keep me from doing it. I resent that. Makes me mad. Now, there's a much longer list of individuals, institutions, and principles where I knuckle them under. And and they do what I want because they don't want to go through the wrath that they're going to have to go through. Okay, and so this includes my grandma, and it includes Pat. I had one resentment with Pat, and that was at this time she wouldn't go to Fresno with me a second time to hear me talk. She said in her all-in-on heart, if it causes you pain for me not to go to Fresno with you, I want you to know I love you enough to help you go through the pain. But I am not going to Fresno. I went to my sponsor and he said, it's time to go through the steps. I said, I don't think she's ever gone through. He said, no, I mean, for you to go through the steps. Well, the first time I went through the steps, I did it myself. Hell, I'm an engineer. I can read and I read. Kenny had moved away, and actually, it changed my life. It was wonderful in the progress I made, but it was just, the wheels of progress are not round. The wheels of progress are at best hexagon shaped. And what you do is go from one flat spot to another flat spot uh, with the wheels of progress. And so now she's turned on me. And then my thoughts have turned on me. And I make this list of selfishness. Well, I resented her about Fresno. She rode with me because this is when I started getting asked to go speak. She rode with me from from Los Angeles, from Culver City to San Diego and back, from Culver City to Oxnard and back, from Culver City to Santa Barbara and back, from Culver City to Bakersfield and back, from Culver City to Fresno and back, to Palmdale. Nobody ever goes to Palmdale, but we went to Palmdale and back. See, I had my way. I knuckled her under. I did that with my kids. There was no relationship in my life where I wasn't the taker. I was the total taker, and I didn't know that. And when I saw that, I said, I didn't know that. I don't want to be that way. Help. And, uh, and so I become less of a taker. And then I did the inventory on dishonesty. And then I did an inventory on self-seeking. Self-seeking is where it dawns on me that the reason I have it my way is I need to be in a better position of authority. And I work at work to get not just money, but I want a position of authority. It's but I was offered, I got the raise, I took the raise, but I didn't get a promotion with it. And I was pissed about it. And I told my boss, I should have got, he said, how long you got the money? What you out here working for? A position of authority. No, that I did. I got a ton of that. I was self-seeking, looking for a position of authority and dishonesty and fear. Fear, fear, fear. I had never did this before, but when I was 13, I began to believe that God was in my life. I would begin to be open. And I tell you, you got to really be stubborn not to see it before 13 years. But I hung in there. But when I was 13 years sober, a number of things happened. One, I started to be an open. And this was in 1985. Well, in 1984, General Service put out a book called Pass It On. And by the end of 85, I read that book. And on page 350 to 354, it says, after essentially 10 years, Bill Wilson had been able to watch people come into the program, work the steps from the big book, and remain sober, but remain angry, anxious, selfish, uh, and afraid, and filled with dread about the character of their life. Long after the high tide of active alcoholism had receded. And he said that's the reason he wrote the 12 and 12 was not to change the step, but to deepen and broaden the step. And I thought, well, boy, he failed on that. That didn't deepen and broaden it. Well, by this time, I've got an open enough mind to take a look at it. And in the first step, in the big book, it says, the first part said, I'm an alcoholic. I lack the power to manage my life so that I can find happiness and satisfaction. In the big book, it says, our admissions of our personal powerlessness become firm bedrock upon which we can build happy and productive lives. I know I got it not verbatim, but that's close enough. And you can tell me later what I got reversed. So I said, well, I'm not personally powerless. I don't think I'm personally powerless. I would admit it. I mean, he said none of us want to. Well, I don't because I'm not. I have the power to decide to take a drink of water. I have the personal power to take it. Now, I'm at a place in my meditation in my life where when I am doubtful about something, I stop and look at that. And what I do is express my doubt and then listen for an answer. Now, I a long time thought that the answer came from my intellect. I did not think but I thought it's like taking a drink of whiskey. I can relax and then my intellect works. And meditation relaxes. But I didn't think I was getting any input from any other source. Although now I'm starting to be open to it. And I said to the universe, I am not personally powerless. I do not believe that. I doubt it. I have the power to pick this up. I have the power to decide to pick it up. And then I wait for an answer, and almost immediately the answer came, yes, you are right. You have that personal power. Now, pick it up with your vision. Don't touch it with your hands. Levitate it. Well, I don't have that power. Well, give yourself that power. Well, I can't give myself that power. No, and you didn't give yourself the power to decide to pick it up with your hand, and you didn't give yourself the power to pick it up with your hand. All personal power comes from some other source of power. You are personally empowered. Now, if you take that into the big book, to look at step 2, it says, after it says a number of things, the perfectly logical assumption is that underneath the material world and life as we see it, that would be not just the chemistry and biology of life or the physics of life, it would be the circumstances and events of life and the character and quality of the circumstances and events. The perfectly logical assumption is that underneath the material world and life as we see it, there is an all powerful. Now, that means something different than it meant before. An all powerful, guiding, creative intelligence, manifesting the profoundest reason and most radiant beauty in everything that exists. That happened to be a life changer for me. And every time I've gone through the steps, and I've gone through them recently, when Pat was there, had a stroke, and she didn't want to go on. And then I gave her the talk about neuroplasticity, and that comes from strokes. And she said, in a little bit, help me up. I want to feel and look, I could focus on the bad. She had a stroke. All my life, I focused on the bad like that. And I came here, and she gets up, and I see that's the best. I get her up, and she's walking around crying, snot, running, and all that. But yeah, she loved that part. But, but you see, there's goodness there. And in doing my fears, I saw that 95% of the stuff I fear never happened. And the stuff that did happen, that I was afraid would and did, honest to God, in my life turns out to be the best thing that could have happened. Absolutely. And if we need to do that. You can't believe me, but you can believe that I had that experience. But we've each got to do it ourselves and see ourselves and then surrender. Where all my life fear has been a corroding thread through the fabric of my entire being because I'm not having my way. But when I look at it from the point of view that I did my part. Self-reliance worked, but God reliance had to be in there. That's why all the stuff I feared, most of it didn't happen. But it's also why is a golden thread is pulled through every circumstance and event of my life to create the best possible outcome. And that's always been true, but I missed it because I wasn't having my way. The universe has existed, let's say, 13.7 billion years. How come in 1932, when I'm born, do I take total charge? Does that make any sense? And this is a obviously it's a terrific experience. This program about economics, and I was a terrific honor that I get to come and share with you this morning. And I love you very much. And last shot in meditation, I read a book where it says, "Whatever way you find God, that's the right way for you." If you like Pat and just quiet down and feel God. That's right for her. Now, I had to analyze the Big Bang Theory and a whole bunch of other stuff for me to see a basis to believe in God. Now, if that's what you have to do, that's right for you. But remember, the guy wrote, wherever you see God pass, sit in that window again. I knew the place that I see God pass is in the program about Alex and Nachman with you folks, with these meetings. Thank you for letting me share that.